game.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it's also important that should these situations come up where it's something that as characters we can not only deal with but discuss and implement and build. I think that'll add a level of maturity that a lot of D&D streams don't get.
Well, just to kind of tie into that, that's a really good point. And the word that came to my mind as I was sitting here thinking was meaning,
Yep.
right? Like, just kind of tying in with what Dillon was saying there. Like, if you really want the story to pop, in my opinion, if it has meaning to it, and then and now let's just take it from a stream show perspective here. I mean, when an audience connects to it, I mean, you're golden, man. That's what makes a good show great, a great show amazing, and okay show shitty if there's no meaning to it. So I think kind of tying in with that was, if we can really figure out a way to just make sure that what we're doing has a purpose, which I'm sure it does, but even just taking it to like that next level of meaning is what I think is what really. If it ties to your heartstrings, man, and we get emotional into it, it's like, oh man, like if someone else isn't feeling that, I don't know what they're watching, because that's it. Connecting and meaning kind of go together with that.
Yeah, I mean, everything that you said, I mean, all of that especially, because I mean, yeah, I brought up like the level of comfortability, how much are you willing to dive in? Because I feel like that's the big thing is collaboration as well, and it's the idea that if you're going to say that you're committed to this, and it's like, you say this, you talk the talk, but it's really making sure that you can dive yourself in there. Like your character can embrace and do their role. Like if their character is slightly racist towards dwarves or tabaxi, then that's part of it, and you throw yourself in. But the good thing about it is with players like this, if you at least accept and understand it and agree upon each other, that when you all become that role and you all actually fully commit to like your dialogue and your actions and your emotes, then you actually get people who can respond to you in just the exact same amount of emotion and just the level of involvement. And that's what makes it such a great game. And that's where you get like that kind of, I feel, almost a connection of people believing it or wanting to see the outcome, because now you have two people who are just basically saying, I want to give this much in, the other one goes, yeah, I'm going to do this, and you kind of do this and this, and you just slowly start climbing how much you can really try to make the other person really bring out the character inside them. It's kind of like this, almost like a tennis match where you ricochet back to the next player. They kind of bring it up and they just build the momentum, and you now feel more emotionally attached. And that I feel like that's really important with players, to really be able to be comfortable enough and willing enough to just fully expose yourself that far.
I think go ahead.
PC culture has made just people in general, in the general population, so sensitive these days, it seems like, and being able to kind of touch on or explore those sensitive topics that can be triggering for people these days through a character, there's kind of a safety in that, because it's people don't engage with those sensitive topics as much anymore because they're afraid of what people will think about them.
I think that's a theme, I think, for this whole production, is we don't want to do good. We want to take it 3, 4, 5 levels above what is acceptable and what is okay and what is good. And that means the storytelling has to be on point. The emotions, the actors, us as players, we have to become characters and act, actually, not just play D&D. We have to actually be these characters.
Yeah, that's a great point, and that's something I'm really, really, really looking for. And I think that's something Ryan picked up on during his interview compared to the other 3. We did because it was the last interview, I kind of we were getting closer to the end, and I knew what I was looking for and how everything was going to structure, and I knew how the callback interview was going to be, and with the call outs and everything. So his interview was most like how that callback interview was, and we had talked about if you guys could identify what I'm looking for and stuff. It's really interesting, the answers of, they all thought that they would be chosen, and they would say who else in the group. We did our own kind of mini call outs thing, and it really caught all. How many people did you have? 4 in yours?
5, I think.
Okay, yes.
It was 4 or 5. Yeah.
All the other players had their answers or whatever, but Ryan said in front of all the other ones that he doesn't think any of them would be chosen, and it like totally threw him off guard. And it was great though, just to see that understanding of like what it takes to be the kind of player for the kind of game that I'm trying to put together, and they could not see why he said it.
Well, even just the mini callbacks that we did, nobody was really willing to say anything until I did, and then it was more of just that one guy who got kind of upset about it and wasn't willing to let it go.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I mean, it's just you have to be honest with each other, or else it won't work,
Yeah, I mean, 'cause you can teach somebody through just experience how to be a better player. But just that upper level of thinking of the production side, that was probably the reason why I granted this side interview, and something I really was drawn to with Ryan. Not that Connor doesn't have it, but
you have to have that emotional intelligence.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you guys are aware why we're doing this, because this wasn't part of the plan. I approached them all one at a time, and I told myself before, like, if any one of the top 3 said they didn't think it was fair, because there was a process, and I made rules, and those 6 people who made it through, I told them 4 of you 6 will make it through, but one at a time was like, hey, this is what I'm feeling, how do you feel about it? And all 3 of them ended up telling me they saw both sides, but they trusted my judgment on it. So that's why we're here, is so they can get a feel for it for themselves. But yeah, so I'm looking for actors. That's a really good way of putting it. I don't remember who said it, but not just role-playing a character, but think of it like a TV show. Like, you're your own person, then you get on set, and every decision you make is what the person who you are being. You are that character. You make all decisions. Every conversation you have, everything you do is who the character would be. And that's, I think, the biggest reason why Tim why he got last place, because he was so like, oh, I want to do this, I want to make this kind of character. Like, I tried telling everybody, come into this with no preconceived anything. I want you guys to formulate that yourselves. And I don't feel like he could be an actor where like he would come in with this preconceived thing, and it's the way my world is built. You're gonna actually fail. You have to be fluid. So that makes to make it through this. And yeah, so that's something I'm expecting from you guys, is to completely immerse yourself. That's why we're going to, the tentative start date is July 10th, but it might get pushed out farther, because we're going to do as much stuff as we can. Whoever gets selected for the 4th spot, we're going to spend lots and lots of time getting to know each other, but more importantly, you get to know your character, and you can only get that point with piloting that character. Does that make sense? I think that's one of the downsides of most games when they start, is they don't really know who their character is yet. It's hard to roleplay something that you don't understand. You can make an epic background, you can make an epic list of flaws or strengths, but that doesn't make a relatable character. Like it's the connection of the pilot to the character that never is there at the start of a game. So I want us to have that right off the bat, and then also the understanding of each other and what you guys are expecting from each other before we start. So, and that only comes from time, and that I would rather put in before we start than starting prematurely. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Even though I want to start right now.
Well, that's probably why, you know, like Critical Role just took off so fast, is like, and they've even said this in some of their panels or whatever, like they played together at a table for 2 years first before they launched the show. Mm-hmm. By the time they got there, they all knew who they were as characters. Mm-hmm. And that was, and like Matt Mercer said, like he thinks that's the only reason why he thinks that it got so popular so fast the way it did, is because they knew each other and each other's characters so well before they started streaming their games.
Yeah. I don't think having some of the best voice actors, you know, in the business.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Like they've got some, you know, they're all pretty good looking people. They've got great they're great voice actors in tons of video games. Yeah, that also helps a lot too. But,
yeah. Well, it can hurt having an ugly person on show. It really can.
Just the whole time. Just I'll just play like that. Put like a big smiley face up or some shit.
Yeah. All right. So I brushed on character flaws, and they are important. But let's talk about why. Why are flaws so important for connection between viewer and us?
I think the flaws are important because the flaws about your personality are what people tend to worry about themselves most in life. So when people can get on a stream and they can relate to your character's flaws and they can see you grow through those flaws, it builds that bond between the viewer and you as the character, because they can see themselves in your character.
This is for everybody.
Oh.
Yeah, I mean, especially that it's true, because you can't have a story without a flaw. You can't grow or develop. There's no reason to watch. There's no kind of motivation to see someone break over the hurdle or push past the phobia or some kind of restriction or thing that might cause them to be flawed as an individual. But I think I love the thing about flaws is that they cause dynamics. And I think it was Kyle, you made the thing about mistakes where you called them, like I said happy accidents, but you said
beautiful oops.
Beautiful oopses. Yeah, beautiful oops. I feel like that a lot of the times, and especially if you go by all of our history as humans. I mean, anytime we have an accident, usually that's what causes the innovation and the sudden inspiration. Mm-hmm. I mean, penicillin accident, dirty work lab table, antibiotics. So I mean, a lot of the times you really do need to embrace the flaws, and they really usually will produce great results.
I think part of it too is, if we're focused on connecting to people, which seems to be a theme we've kind of uncovered, people are flawed. It's like the Superman problem. Like, Superman is so perfect that you never really give a shit what he's doing, because he's Superman. He's going to get through it. If you have a flaw, like going off superhero, like Batman, he's out of his fucking mind insane. And I think that's why he's more relatable, because he has the sadness and the sorrow and this anger, whereas Superman's just this shining beacon of perfection, and that's not how people are. Everyone's flawed, and I think if you give someone a flaw, especially in the character, like say once we're doing the stream and your character has a flaw and someone can relate to that flaw, and I think it was AJ that said have them overcome these feelings that they have. If they see this character overcome that, then maybe that gives them hope that they too can overcome it, and just strengthens that connection even more.
Well, I mean, it definitely moves the story forward too. I mean, talking about growth, I mean, that it's perfect is boring. I mean, if I think even in a group interview, I said something about, even if it comes to someone talking about min-maxing their character or always being amazing at things, it's like, honestly, I love it when I have shitty stats on certain things. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
If I'm failing at stuff, just jumping over logs and stuff, like that's a basic example, but like sometimes those make for the most memorable things in my games that I play in as a player. So I just think if we're all amazing and all we do is succeed at everything that we do, I would probably turn that off. Like the Superman thing that Dylan was talking about. Like no one relates to being shitty against a green rock. Like, I mean, I don't know. I'd rather relate to the guy who's dealing with some internal shit or has what does he do to fight his addiction problems with things. And you can't tell me that there's not people who can relate to that out there. I know I can, among other things. So, you know, loss, gosh, man, even just loss of a friend or a family member or something, that comes up in stories all the time. And you watch it on a TV show and it's like, like, why am I crying at a TV show right now? Like, it's scripted. But I think that's the even best part about this is because it's not scripted, so it's even more of a real emotion when you really think about it, as opposed to someone who had to think about it and put it into a script, and we're just feeling that.
Yeah, this happens. You're gonna feel this way. That's a problem with shows and movies. That's why part of this is so great. Is you guys don't know what's coming. And your actual reactions are legitimate. Like, I had no fucking clue. Well, I guess we'll try this. Like,
that can lead to some big things.
The most fun I ever had, like, playing a character, even though it only was for like a couple sessions, was my character's like just very general backstory was he was like a farmer. Some bandits came into his like farmstead when he was gone, and him and his wife just had a newborn baby. The bandits killed the wife and left the baby, and so he got his old sword down, left with his baby to go hunt down the bandits that killed his wife. And so when I met up with the party, like I was this adventurer with this shitty sword, and I was wearing a fucking baby Bjorn. So like when we went into combat, like I've got a baby on my back, and I'm like with these people, and we go to the inn, and some of the other players didn't like kids, and I'm like, can you hold my baby? Like, it was just the most
that's interesting.
The most fun I've ever had as a player was like I had this child with me that I couldn't let go, but I had to get my vengeance for these guys that killed my wife.
That's interesting. I've never heard of that ever.
Yeah.
I mean, I've had people with crazy backstories like, oh, my parents were killed, or my family, but I've never had a character I'm gonna handicap myself so much to where I'm gonna have to carry my child.
Well, yeah. it's like for the
that's great.
I say I want to put if I wanted to play that paladin, I can imagine it's well, maybe I'm just weak as shit, I have a 6 strength, but I just want to protect people, so I've got this really high constitution, so my character can just fucking take a beating, but he's just total bullshit at hitting anybody with his sword, and he'll just do whatever he can to stop anybody else from getting hurt. And if that means him just taking a total shit kicking every time, he's that's what he does. Those are the kind of things I think that people really don't do. They don't give their characters real flaws.
Right.
Which I would love to see more of a game with everybody with flaws like that.
Right. Yeah, I have a really interesting stat roll that you guys are going to be doing on Tuesday when we create characters.
Oh, yeah.
It opens up a chance to have some fucking, some of the worst stats possibly that you've ever had playing.
Just roll a d20. 7. There it is.
I swear to God, one of those rolls could be a 4. I think it's the 4. I think is the lowest you can get, and I got a 4 one time. I'm like, 4.
And I'm not gonna tell you guys how to build your characters at all. There's gonna be a backstory tie-in that you have to implement, but I'm gonna challenge you guys to see how this thing is working, this machine that I've built, and how it's going to go, and how you guys are going to incorporate into it. If you want to put your best stats in the best spot for your class, and you want to pick the best race to get that extra bonus in the best spot, I'm not going to tell you no. You can build your character, but I think that this is the type of game where you're not going to be overly punished for purposely putting your best stat or your shittiest stat in a place that would hurt or benefit. You know what I mean? To where if that's how this person would be, that's where I think you should put it.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? To where, like, for instance, we're not going to do it this way. We're going to roll everything first, and there's a whole macro with everything. But say you make your character first, and the order those stats come out, that's where you plug them in. You know, we're not doing that, but I'm just saying, like, how would that affect your character? You know what I mean? So it's gonna be a balance of the two. Like I said, you guys.
I love it.
You want. I don't want you guys to have shitty characters. Obviously.
Well, it's
if
like
you
every
need
game.
Intelligence. You need to have a good intelligence. But
every game I posted on Roll20, you know, when people apply, the 90% of them both say I'm an awesome role player and I'm not a meta gamer. And when I invite them to the game, the first thing they do is make the most meta character that they possibly can. And I'm like, all right, guy, well, that's fine.
right. There's a balance. I also don't want you to have shitty stats and important stuff. If you can never fucking lockpick, if you can never pickpocket as a rogue, you're useless. But at the same time, you don't be.
I'm gonna try really hard, okay?
We believe in you. Do it.
Oh God, I stabbed him.
Dr. Shadow, you know, where you're fucking 20 right off the bat. Like, come on, you know.
But it is like the better stories do blossom out of situations of necessity rather than choice.
Well, I'm also really interested to see how I know that we're doing it's a little bit different in terms of character building and development. So even if you do the plug and play where it's just straight down the line, man, hey, if that's you know, I'm excited for that shit. Yeah. Like I'll roll with all of that. We'll put them in and go and hands in the air, man. If I'm shitty at lockpicking, I'll figure it out eventually. Right. And that one time that I do it, it's gonna be amazing.
Right.
yeah, right. Yeah.
Totally, it's gonna be totally for something pointless, like just to get in my room.
You just reminded me of this homebrew class I saw. It was a muscle wizard.
Oh yes.
So it's a wizard class. It's a wizard like subclass where they're so stupid that they think they're a wizard, but they're really just a giant like beefy motherfucker. So like one of their abilities, like muscle wizard, casts fist.
Yes.
Stuff like that.
It's
Yes. I'm okay with that.
It's a
okay
concentration spell. You have to keep like.
I love it. I love it. Hell yeah.
All right, what else you guys got? Anybody? Any questions, topics?
I was kind of curious, like just going through your interview process. Did you have any girls apply to the game?
One.
How'd she do in her interview? Like, did she just crumple under the weight of being scrutinized by other people, or?
She tried too hard.
Too hard?
For part of it. And then the other half, she just had this entitlement, like, I'm a girl gamer, so I'm in, kind of a thing. It was really weird, because I was going into this wanting a girl player, and I've done interviews and stuff for past campaigns, which ended up being a wash, but I had multiple females apply, and I had one of them as a rock star, and I have little mats, sorry. I was anticipating getting several to pick from, and I was wanting to have one, at least, you know, but just the only one I got wasn't what I was looking for, so
yeah. Because you want to kind of represent like as many people as you can in the game, you know. So I was curious, like if you how many you had, because you know there's obviously none sitting here now, and how they handled like this type of thing for like a game essentially, you know.
Mm-hmm. She had a friend apply too. Was that any of you guys? I don't even remember now. It was so long ago. No. Okay, so no, it was Mike. It was Mike. So Mike, who you guys met in, you know, the callback interview. So him and the girl both applied, and I pitched it to him like, well, if one of you selected, not the other, would it hurt? And they both said no. But I mean, when I first started this, I'm like, yeah, I'm gonna have a girl, I'm gonna have a black dude, I'm gonna have, you know, like, I'm gonna have a gay guy, I'm gonna have, you know, like, I'm gonna have all this diversity just so we
you got one of them.
Yeah, exactly. But then going through it, it's like, you know what, shit actually doesn't matter to me at all. It's just gonna be whoever is the best is gonna progress. And I don't have a black eye, even though I had several black eyes apply. You know, I had a girl apply, but she didn't make it. I'm more true to the heart of the production and the dynamic of the group, more so than the PC-ness. And I hope that is, I'm trying to be transparent about it, and I hope that's something you guys are picking up on, that kind of like casting for a role for a character on a movie or a show is, you know, this dude's a black dude, so we have to find a black dude. Like some superhero movies, like some comic book characters were this particular thing, you know, like whether it be sex or race or height, but then they found an actor just like, you know what, this person embodies this character, even though they're the wrong skin color. We're gonna go with it. You know what I mean? And some people bitch about it, but to me it's like, that doesn't actually matter to me. You know what I mean? It's more about just the story.
Right. Right.
All right. What are other specific things you guys have for him? Because you guys are making the decision here, not me, and it has to be unanimous yes, or it's a no. Does that make sense? So, what do you guys need to ask?
What is your extent for? Because we did talk about this, and we did ask previously before. How much are you willing to, or what do you feel uncomfortable with? Is there anything that you do that we should know?
No, there's nothing that makes me feel uncomfortable to the point where I can't deal with it or talk about it. I mean, I've always tried to be a pretty open communicator. You know, I live with my girlfriend's like Puerto Rican, and you know, all the players in my new Curse of Strahd game are all like 19-year-old kind of really heavily involved in like social justice warrioring, and it's interesting to talk with them about stuff. And you know, for a while in my Tomb of Annihilation game, I had a black guy, and it was interesting to talk to him about his perspective on like even just gaming, because I don't interact with a lot of black people, you know. So it's like, yeah, there's nothing that it makes me so uncomfortable that I can't like communicate or talk about it.
Okay.
What's your worst trait?
Good question.
As a human being, in general, yeah. I've always been a pretty terrible procrastinator. It's just kind of like big part of the reason why I missed the callback interview is because I procrastinated on just looking at my phone and making sure that I just had those other plans, and I was like, well, I'll just look at it on Monday when I'm done. And obviously I'm fortunate enough that I could still be here, but or you guys are here for me, so I think that's probably definitely always been my worst trait. I've really struggled with procrastination and getting up, even just getting up in the morning on time sometimes can be very difficult. I'm like generally an hour late to work.
Okay. This is a good question. Let's all actually answer it. Because transparency is important. Whatever our weaknesses are, we all need to be aware of it and support each other and find ways where we can purposefully minimize it, you know, and set the other person up for success, myself included. I'm gonna have flaws that you guys are gonna be learning, you know, but is it about cutting me down? No. With the type of game and the type of show we're gonna be trying to put on, as you guys develop it, if you identify it, I actually want you to call me out on it, not while we're streaming, but then not just make me feel like shit. How can you guys, or what can I do to prevent this from happening again?